past week, Dakota Meyer weighed in on ISIS. The war hero and soon-to-be son-in-law of Todd and Sarah Palin gave some insight on how to stop ISIS on Fox News, a priceless take from the Medal of Honor recipient. Governor Palin wrote on social media, quote, "Great message from Dakota this morning on Fox and Friends on defeating ISIS instead of being sitting ducks. Perfect line about living in a state that respects our Second Amendment rights," unquote. Palin also provided a link if you're interested in a T-shirt Sergeant Meyer is putting out that reads, "ISIS hunting Americans is like a sheep hunting a lion." You can access the link for that T-shirt and see all of the Dakota Meyer Fox interview on the Mama Grizzly Radio Facebook page. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page, follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA, and visit sarahpalinchannel.com.
Now, the Palin Update with Kevin Scholla presents Liberty and Legacy. Here's Tamara Colbert.
The first freedom of Americans was religious liberty and freedom of conscience. The freedom to live according to your faith was tantamount for the Pilgrims who fled their homes at great risk and sacrifice. They did so under the belief that men and women needed to be free to worship the Creator. I believe today that religious freedom is and should be the civil rights issue of our time. Of course, religious liberty is still being pursued in America, but Christians are now openly threatened by laws, the mainstream media, and pop culture into compromising in the name of, quote, civil rights. And that essentially tramples on our religious freedoms. And we can start with Obamacare and go up the ladder of these discrepancies of Christians compromising their values every single day. President Obama and his administration think the First Amendment only applies to exercise of religion in churches, but not our everyday lives. However, I beg to differ. Millions of us in America are trying to live our faith every day in our actions and deeds. Not just sitting in a church pew for a couple hours every weekend, but trying to live our lives as the best example of Christ living through us. At least I want to do that. And most days I fail, but I do try. Thankfully, we have such a great, tremendous display of faithful leaders standing firm on their Christian principles, one of whom I get to work with on a daily basis. Michael Ferris, the founder and president of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and of course, co-founder of the project I'm working with him on, Convention of States Project. If you didn't know it before, you're going to know right now. I'm pleased to tell you that Dr. Ferris was one of the original creators of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, signed into law by then President Bill Clinton in 1993 by a nearly unanimous Congress. And that was when Democrats controlled both houses. Wow. Last week, Mike Ferris was talking about the fact that it was a perfect exercise in bipartisanship that included every stripe of Republicans, Democrats, and religious organizations coming together. Wow. Where are those people now? We sure could use those folks for this Indiana situation. You know, Indiana is the 20th state that passed their own version of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Remember, religious freedom is for all Americans. That protection from religious intolerance was the primary motivation of the early American settlers. So why are the forces in society today railing against this new Indiana law, among others? I think it's because the Indiana law, again, affirms and dares to stand with the principle that religious freedom is for everyone. And that means Christians too. Last week, when things were getting really heated in Indiana, a group of about 30 homeschooling moms showed up at the state capitol, well-dressed, polite, coming just to pray, show kindness and love for the legislators who had been under the most unbelievable onslaught of negativity. They huddled in prayer with those lawmakers just to show them the love of Christ and to thank them for all that they were doing. Of course, someday, no one will ever remember the yelling and the carrying on. What they will remember is the praying and love, and that will last for an eternity. This week, I ask you, please pray for America and pray for the millions of Christians to continue to stand strong and, most importantly, to stand up for religious liberty and all of our civil rights given to us by God and guaranteed us in the Constitution. I'm Tamara Colbert for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tamara Colbert in Texas. Tune in for more Liberty and Legacy next week. And to learn about Convention of States, head to conventionofstates.com. Now our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. In 2006, I was state treasurer of Missouri and fought a hard-won battle against the money managers and entrenched interests to make sure taxpayer money was not being invested in public companies that did business with the government of Iran or any other terrorist-sponsoring country. That year, we created the first terror-free fund in the country to show Wall Street that you could actually have as good or better rate of return by investing in companies that refused to do business with Iran. And in fact, we did do better. It was a tough fight because most money managers never want to relinquish any power. After Missouri divested its investments from any company doing business with Iran, 30 other states followed our lead. Economic sanctions against Iran started working, and the Bush administration escalated their efforts to tighten down any loopholes. Many of the global banks and multinational companies were providing loans and investments to Iran's Revolutionary Guard activities. It was horrifying to read how some of these companies were helping Iran spread terrorism and develop nuclear capabilities, all in the name of profit. Now Obama wants to unwind all those sanctions. It's important to remember that sanctions were imposed because Iran is designated as a terrorist-sponsoring state by our State Department, since they are continuing to escalate their terrorism throughout the Middle East. Does this so-called deal remove that designation as terrorist-sponsoring state? That would truly be dangerous. The old legal adage, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, then it's a duck, holds true. President Obama, Iran walks and talks and behaves like the terrorist-sponsoring state that it truly is. Please don't be fooled. This is Sarah Steelman for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Liberty and Legacy and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also like Mama Grizzly Radio on Facebook and follow along on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Tamara Colbert, at Sarah_Steelman, and at 3DSTS. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Tamara Colbert, and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. Thanks to Michelle Gray, and thank you for listening today. A special thanks to our sponsor, 3D Security and Training Academy. Visit 3dsta.com. The Palin Update is produced by Lena Anderson, the Andy L. Kramer, and Lori Ann Lewis. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.